Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of a new series that I would like to call it the Park Car Conversations. It's a more laid back, conversational type of video where I just talk about what's on my mind, where I talk about what I think people need to hear, things that are going on in my life, things that I've been through, and things that I'm going through. And the topic that I wanted to get into today is trust issues. I feel like once somebody gets their trust broken, once somebody breaks another person's trust, they don't trust at all. It's not just for that one person, it's that person broke my trust, so now any other person, I'm not gonna trust them. And I feel like that's the wrong way to go about it. For me, I had you could call it a situationship. We met online, and they lived in a different city. They lived across the country. We ended up talking. We started to FaceTime and call and get really close. And I had no reason to trust them. I had no reason not to trust them. But I feel like the best thing to do is to give somebody your trust, and it's their choice whether or not they want to keep it, whether or not they want to break it. So if one person breaks your trust, then you shouldn't not trust everybody. You should just, for that one person, maybe not trust them as much, but maybe give them a second chance, because everybody does make mistakes, and I feel like it depends really on the reason why they broke your trust, right? Because it could be a situation where they didn't tell you something because they thought, hey, if I tell them this, then they're gonna get hurt. Sometimes ignorance is bliss. I do believe that, but if a person wants to know, then you have to tell them. You shouldn't lie to somebody's face. And my bad, I got sidetracked for the relationship story or situationship story. So we started talking, and then I ended up seeing them. I ended up taking a couple of my friends to go see them. We took a plane across, and it was, when we saw each other, it was great. It was everything I could have imagined. And it becomes a question of what now? We weren't official, we weren't dating, but we decided to just keep on doing what we were doing. So I got back and it was all good, and then just a couple weeks after I got back, things started to change, right? They were more cold, and I was like, what's going on, right? Normally, if I text her, she'll answer right away. Normally, if I call her, she'll be like, oh, my bad, I'm doing this, let me call you back soon. And now it's just, I barely get a text per day. In one day, I barely get a text, right? So things are really different, and I'm noticing it. So I bring it up a couple of times. I'm like, hey, what's going on with you? You know, you've been really distant lately. You've been really dry. I don't know what's happening. You want to talk about it? They're like, oh no, nothing's wrong. I'm just a little busy. So I say, okay, sure. And then I bring it up another time, same response. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then I'm like, okay, this is bad for my health. This is bad for me. They don't want to talk about it, so I left. And then I later found out that they were talking to somebody else. They didn't let me know. They later got into a relationship with them because I was still following them on socials, right? So I saw everything that they were posting. While it hurt, and I lost trust in her, I lost trust in that relationship. It doesn't mean that I should just lose trust in people. Just because one person broke my trust, it doesn't mean that I should not trust again. So going into future things, I gave people my trust until they gave me a reason to take it back, until they broke my trust. Then you have to move with caution, then you have to move differently. So I feel like trust is given. You shouldn't have to earn somebody's trust, for me, in my opinion. And I know a lot of people will disagree with that, but I don't see how you can really foster good and genuine relationships when there's no trust, right? And when you're in a relationship with somebody, when you're in a friendship with somebody, you have to trust them. And if they're really close to you, I think that you should trust them with your life. You should trust them. If they had a gun to your head, are you trusting them? Yeah, you are. And if you can't trust them, then I don't think that they should be close in your life. Maybe just an acquaintance, but they shouldn't be a close friend to you if you don't trust them fully. And I think that relationships are built off of trust. Friendships are built off of trust. Trust is everything. And if you give me a reason to not trust you, if you break my trust, then there's no more relationship, right? Because with trust, it's a foundation. You build things off of trust, and if the foundation is broken, then the whole house is broken, right? And if you try to build a house without trust at one of the foundations, then it's not going to be the strongest relationship you have. Because if at the beginning, when you're friends with somebody, or when you're talking to somebody, and it's like, if you don't trust them, then you don't really know what's going on. You don't know what's happening. You second guess everything they're doing. You think, hey, what if they're talking to somebody else? What if something's going on that I don't know about? And you're just making yourself go crazy over it, right? So I think that you should just trust people until they give you a reason not to trust you. Trust issues. People in this generation have bad trust issues. They get hurt once and everything's downhill. They get their feelings hurt one time and now their heart is cold. Don't lose faith in people, right? Because that's all that we have. We're a community, so you can't not put your faith into people, faith into yourself. And it's about using your judgment, right? If somebody breaks your trust the first time, if somebody's moving a little weird, if somebody's moving a little off, then you should ask them about it, hey, and ask them, hey, be honest with me, right? And don't just go into things blindly, right? I'm not saying give your trust to people blindly. You also have to use your judgment, and you also have to question things, right? If you feel in your gut that, hey, something's off, then most of the time maybe something's off. Maybe it's just a reflex from past trauma, from past things. You've seen that before, so now you know what's coming next, right? You see the gray clouds, so you know the rain's coming. And sometimes it's gray clouds without the rain, right? So if you have that gut feeling about something, don't just hold it there. Ask them about it. Communicate with them about it, because I feel like communication is also an important thing with friendships and relationships, building anything meaningful. But it's communicating and understanding. And I feel like understanding is the most important part of it. The first step is, communication. But understanding, I think, is more important, because you can communicate. But if the person doesn't understand, then there's not really a point, right? Communication is the first step, but understanding is the most important one. And if somebody says something to you, you can't just listen to just respond. You have to listen to understand their point of view, understand what they're saying, right? Because I feel like with a lot of relationships and friendships, people they have an answer already in their head, and it doesn't matter what the other person says. I'm gonna say this, but you have to communicate to understand, right? If somebody communicates something to you, you have to really process it and understand, hey, why would they even bring this up in the first place, right? If they brought up that, hey, I don't like when you do that, then it's for a reason. People don't bring things up just because they're bored, right? Just because, hey, I want to start an argument. And maybe people do, but that's really toxic behavior, right? Extremely toxic behavior. So when it comes to that, people are just manipulative, right? So it's using your judgment and, hey, is this actually a valid thing that they're bringing up, and why would they even bring this up in the first place? So communicating to understand, and always trying to understand the other person's point of view, always putting yourself in their shoes before you respond, right? Because if you just communicate without understanding, then it's just back and forth. There's no conversation, right? You need to understand what the other person is saying in order to have a conversation. So always put yourself in their shoes and ask yourself, hey, what are they feeling? What are they telling me, and why are they telling me, right? And don't keep things to yourself. Always communicate how you feel. Always communicate, hey, I actually really liked it when you did this for me, or hey, I didn't like it when you did that. That made me feel uncomfortable, or I think that is really bad for you. I think that's not healthy for our relationship. So communicating and always understanding what the other party is going through. And if you communicate to your friend, to your parent, to your other significant other, then, and they don't understand, then you have to try to try and communicate in a way that they can understand, right? Because sometimes if I just say things in a certain way, people won't understand what I'm saying. But if I maybe give them a different perspective or throw in an analogy or something, then they'll understand better, right? Because everybody thinks differently. So you can't expect, hey, I understand it best this way, so they also have to understand it best that way as well. So just, if they don't understand you the first time, try to communicate it in a different way. And always understanding that if the other party can't even understand what I'm saying, they don't even acknowledge or try to put themselves into my shoes, then maybe you have to rethink that friendship or that relationship. If they're always blaming you, and if they can't see your side of things, if they can't understand you, then maybe you have to take a step back. Maybe you have to walk out of their life. And I know it's hard. I know sometimes you never want to leave. You think that, hey, I'm never going to find anybody like them. But you'll find somebody again. And it's just a matter of time. Because you think that, hey, I'm never gonna find another person like them, but it's unhealthy. You're just destroying yourself over this, right? And it does get better when some people decide that, hey, it's more healthy for me to walk out of this person's life because it's a destructive friendship, a destructive relationship. It's toxic. It's taking a toll on me. It's taking a toll on my life. It's better just to walk out sometimes, right? Even though you think that, hey, this is the best thing that could have ever happened to me. Sometimes the best thing that could have happened to you is if you leave that place, right? You never know. So that wraps up the first episode of the park car convos. I don't really know what kind of style I want to do yet, but I'd appreciate some feedback and some constructive criticism. I'm always open to that. But yeah, I hope everyone's well. I'll see y'all in the next one.